I've been fascinated by the reactions to Oprah's comments about Whitney Houston because I don't think we're having the same conversation. Some people are talking about Oprah, some people are talking about Whitney, but what I'm most interested in is the psychology behind it all. If you haven't seen, Oprah recently shared a story about Whitney Houston. She recalled a time when Whitney fell before appearing on her show. Oprah said she believed Whitney was high and she started using drugs again. She also begged her audience not to take pictures or allow that moment to leave the studio. According to Oprah, they honored the request. Oprah said that wouldn't happen today. Whitney Houston's estate has since disputed Oprah's account, saying Whitney was not high at the time. So there are competing accounts of what actually happened. But honestly, that's not the part that fascinated me the most. What fascinated me was us. Almost immediately, I started seeing comments saying Oprah was trying to embarrass Whitney, that she's always done this, that she's anti-black, that this proves who she really is. Maybe some people feel that way because they're looking at a pattern over many years, and that's certainly part of the conversation. But one thing I always find interesting and fascinating is how quickly we move from hearing someone's words to believing we know exactly what was in their heart. As a therapist, one of the things we talk about often is the difference between intention and impact. Those are very two different conversations. Someone can have good intentions and still cause harm. Someone can also be misunderstood. Talking about the impact of somebody's words is absolutely fair. If Oprah's comments hurt people, that's a real conversation. But I also think we should be careful about assuming we know someone's intentions with certainty. Unless someone tells us what was in their heart, we're making an inference. Another thing this conversation made me think about is something in psychology called posthumous idealization. It's our tendency to remember people more positively after they died. We naturally emphasize the beautiful parts of who they were and become less comfortable talking about the painful or complicated parts of their lives. That's not necessarily wrong. It's often part of grief. And I also think there's a cultural layer. In many black families and communities, we grow up hearing, "Don't speak ill of the dead." That's more than just a saying. It's about honoring someone's dignity after they're gone. So, when someone tells a story that includes a person's struggles after they've passed away, I completely understand some people feel protective. I get it. Because for so many people, Whitney isn't just an artist. She's a part of their memories. She's a part of their childhood. She's a part of their family cookouts, weddings, funerals even. She's part of the soundtrack of people's lives. So this conversation becomes personal really quickly. And sometimes when something becomes personal, we're no longer reacting only to the story in front of us. We're reacting to our grief, our memories, our values, our experiences. That's why two people can watch the same interview and come away with completely different conclusions. But here's what I believe. Whitney Houston's struggles were part of her story. They were never the whole story. Acknowledging that someone struggled doesn't erase their greatness. It doesn't erase one of the greatest voices we've ever heard. It doesn't erase her influence. It doesn't erase her legacy. She wasn't just her addiction. She wasn't just her accomplishments. She was a whole person. And I actually think honoring someone means remembering the whole person, not reducing them to their greatest moment, not reducing them to their hardest moment, but allowing them to be fully human. The last thing I'll say is this. One thing social media has made me realize is how often we're encouraged to choose a side immediately. You're either with Oprah or you're against Oprah. She's either completely right or completely wrong. Life usually isn't that simple. People are complicated. Intentions are complicated. Legacies are complicated. Maybe this conversation isn't really about Oprah for everyone. Maybe for some people, it's about Whitney. Maybe it's about grief. Maybe it's about feeling protective of someone who meant something to them. Maybe it's about the pattern they believe they've seen over and over again. Those are all different conversations. And I'm not making this video to defend Oprah. I'm not making this video to criticize Oprah. I'm making it because I think this conversation says something interesting about us. I think it's worth asking ourselves, what am I really reacting to? Because sometimes our strongest emotional reactions tell us just as much about ourselves as they do about the story. And one final thought, in the grand scheme of life, this online outrage probably won't matter in a month, or a year, or a decade, but how we learn to think, how we learn to listen, and how we learn to have conversations with people we disagree with, that will matter. Those are just my psychological views. What are yours?